All right, welcome to Halitics. Hope you had a great weekend. We're getting a little bit of a late start. Actually, I had to redo this with because of a couple of tech issues. But I think on YouTube, the beauty of it is this is here forever, so it doesn't really matter if we get a 5 or 10 or 15-minute late start. Arlen, how you doing? Hope you had a great weekend.
I did. The weather's really nice here right now, and I'm doing very well. Thank you.
All right. Well, Vermont, go ahead.
Did I hear you right? You have COVID again?
Oh, yes. I got COVID. I tested positive this past Wednesday, so it's almost a week now. But I really think I'm starting to totally get out of the woods. It's famous last words. But you know what? I just got hit with this wave of tremendous fatigue. I've been having trouble sleeping. And this, just before I started our live stream, I just got hit with this wave of tremendous fatigue, but it didn't feel like a sick fatigue. It just felt like I'm tired, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think because I've had that sense when I get this kind of fatigue, I'm on the mend. So I think I'll be better, and I've got a lot coming up this week and next week, so I've got to get better. I'm going to Chicago. So yes, I do feel better, Arlen, and thank you for asking.
Well, maybe it's all these tech problems are getting you down and fatigued.
Well, I'm surprised, Arlen, you didn't know that I had COVID because I have announced this on the program three times maybe, and that says to me you haven't been a regular viewer / listener of Halitics. Now, am I right there?
You caught me. I just haven't gotten in the habit yet, but I need
You've got to act like you've seen the last program. Now, you also, because sometimes I think you're a little surprised by some of the positions I take, which tend to be, I don't know if I want to say farther to the left, but certainly more anti-democratic party than yours, which I'm pretty transparent about my contempt for both parties, for the duopoly. I will concede the Republicans are even worse, but I don't know that given that level, right? I mean, it's not really like that's not a contest I'd want to either win or lose, I suppose. I am chewing on a lozenge, so I won't have a coughing jag like I did Friday, but I am feeling better. Arlen, quick, let's get to it. We may end a little early today because I'm not feeling 100%, though I am getting better. The former head of the Wagner mercenary unit, which has its fingers all over the world, especially in Africa, but obviously most notably in Ukraine, is now dead. Shot out of the sky by a Russian missile. It was confirmed over the weekend. What does this mean for Russia? What does this mean for the Russia-Ukraine war?
Well, I think it just means that Putin is in control. Everybody knows he's in control. Everybody knows he's responsible for Prigozhin being killed. So it seems like he could do whatever he wants, and he has total control. So, he's in charge.
Well, does it not, though, perhaps impact negatively on the Russian military adventure in Ukraine? Because Wagner has been at least touted and reported, I believe, by the media, and I think I got this right, as the elite squadron in Ukraine that Russia has. So if the leader of Wagner is dead, and there's a lot of, I would assume, unrest, probably anger, resentment within the core, won't that perhaps redound negatively on the Russian, military and their fight against Ukraine?
Well, that remains to be seen. And right now, the war is nobody's really got a sense of who's really winning and who's really losing. It seems like there are times when Ukraine is doing very well, and other times it seems like Russia's doing very well. And right now, it looks like this war will go on for years and years.
Well, I would say, if assuming that's true, both sides are doing very badly, but certainly you have to agree. And I've always been against it since the beginning. I don't think we should be promoting it. I don't think we should be providing military support to Ukraine without an insistence that they come to the bargaining table right now and work out some kind of ceasefire and hopefully some kind of peace with the UN being there to provide some kind of buffer between Ukraine and Russia. But that said, you have to admit that the highly touted counteroffensive has not gone the way folks in the West, or I presume in Ukraine presidential palace, were hoping.
That's true. It hasn't. And, like I say, it's just up and down, up and down. We don't really know who's winning this war, and we don't want it to go on forever. But right now it looks like it will. But I do want to remind you, Hal, that it was Putin that attacked on his own Ukraine, and it wasn't Ukraine that did anything. So they're the ones he's attacking. They're the ones that he wants to control. So, Ukraine's in a bad position where they don't want to give up their territory. So what are they going to do other than
that's the one thing you do is you try to get your troops safe by stopping the shelling, stopping the artillery, stopping the offensive, and talking. I mean, that seems to me the prerequisite, Arlen, and we haven't seen that happen at all. And I would posit that, in fact, the death of Prigozhin would be another opportunity for the U.S., NATO, and Ukraine and it has to be all of them, right? Because although it's clearly, although the U.S. is trying to present this as Ukraine's war, it really is Ukraine with NATO and the U.S. arrayed against Russia in a proxy war. So given that Prigozhin is now dead, this is going to obviously cause some unrest within the Russian forces. Isn't that a perfect opportunity to go to Putin and say, let's stop the killing. We're going to stop our offensive, which is what we've been calling it. Let's talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love that. But I haven't seen any indication that Putin is willing to stop fighting. I mean, he's the one that started it. He's the one that's on the offensive.
Well, we're on the offensive. No, I shouldn't say we. Ukraine is on the offensive, not Russia. And what have you seen that suggests that the U.S. is prepared to have some kind of dialogue with Russia?
I haven't seen anybody really talking about peace talks. And
well, China has, India has. They have.
Yeah, but they're not involved directly, obviously. No. It's going to have to be Ukraine and their leader and Russia and their leader. They're going to have to agree to some kind of a peace talk, And, I just don't see the incentive for Putin to do that. He hasn't expressed a willingness. I think he just, wants to just go forward and do his.
Well, the incentive is that there's 500,000 casualties and more of them apparently. And although we don't know, the numbers are not perfect, Arlen, there are 500,000 casualties. The leader of his elite squad, he just killed. It seems to me the war is clearly very costly to Russia, not as costly as it is to Ukraine. Ukraine is, their population is being decimated. This war has been an absolute. It's a disaster. It's the 30 years war for Ukraine. So obviously they should be pushing for negotiations, but Blinken has told Zelensky there's going to be no talks. NATO has said no talks. We're going to keep feeding you weapons, but we're not going to allow you to talk to Russia until they back out. So it seems to me the burden has to be on us. We're the great Satan, Arlen. We're the country that's been at war nonstop for decade after decade. There was a little interregnum when Clinton was president, I grant you, but for us to have this kind of arrogance that it's all on Putin, it just seems so ignorant of history. I would just say that. And I'm not saying you're ignorant. This seems to be an ignorance on on the part of the United States and many people, all the Republican candidates except for Vivek and Trump are all in for this. Obviously, Biden's all in for it. The progressives in Congress are all in for this. But this belies the reality, which is we're talking about two empires, the U.S., the global hegemon. It's our responsibility to try to stop this.
Well, yeah, if Putin would cooperate, I don't have any indication that he would cooperate. So, I'm not sure what the U.S. can do. If they ask for, Russia to stop fighting, I kind of doubt that Putin would
Well,
stop
we're
fighting.
we're actually just going around the mulberry bush because we're each saying the same thing over and over. We haven't asked, we haven't demanded, we haven't said to Ukraine there has to be a ceasefire. We haven't said to Russia there has to be a ceasefire. If we said that, the world, I think, would line up with us and a ceasefire would happen.
Well,
And
it's
shouldn't
worth
we at
trying
least
that.
try?
Yeah, no, I'm all for that. I think we should do what you're saying. But, until I hear it, it hasn't happened yet, and I hope that it will.
Well, why hasn't it? Why hasn't Anthony Blinken gone to the UN? And why isn't Joe Biden demanding talks with Moscow at this moment?
Well, I don't know if they
Why
are.
isn't the Progressive Caucus doing that? Well, we know they're not because when Blinken went into Finland at the beginning of the summer, he said the only way there'll be any kind of negotiations is when Russia pulls out of Ukraine and Crimea.
I haven't seen Russia saying they would want to, negotiate or have peace talks.
Okay, maybe they're not. I'm certainly not. Is it like a who struck John, or they're worse than we are, or do we want the killing, as Trump, I think, very articulately said, I just want the killing to end?
I think everybody, has blame for this, except maybe Ukraine. I mean, they were attacked, so they have a right to fight back, obviously. But yeah, what can I say? But yes, let's have peace talks. But you got to get everybody together, and somebody other than, maybe the UN or somebody has got to really push that idea.
Well, shouldn't we be pushing it? And we're doing
yes,
just the
we should.
opposite. We're doing just the opposite.
I don't know. I haven't heard us saying we're not for peace or we don't want peace talks.
All right. Well, I've played the clip a number of times. Let me see if I have it up. I may or may not. But the clip where, over and over, Arlen, it's been complete. Everything that we're hearing this is all Putin's fault. Every comment by every representative of the United States is that Putin's got to get out. He's lawless. He's this, he's that. That's not, if you want peace, and I don't want to spend the whole program on this. I really, really don't, because I want to get to hate crimes. I want to get to and the title of this program, by the way, is Busted Bromances. The busted bromance between Prigozhin and Putin is what we're talking about now, but we're also going to get to Bernie and Cornel, Bernie and Dr. West. But I think this is really, really important. We have made the argument, Arlen. We have insisted. I'm going to make an argument. We've insisted there's no peace until there's no negotiations until Russia does everything we want. Well, that's not how you negotiate. When you negotiate, you don't make your demands till you get to the table, and then you eat. You have to be prepared to make some concessions. And one concession has to be that some of the land that Russia has occupied from the east is going to either stay Russian or be demilitarized. And we can't just expect that they're going to turn over Crimea, because if anyone's winning, they're winning. They've taken over a large section of eastern Ukraine. So the idea, and I'm going to play this, and then you get your response. But I'm just like, what aggogs me is this idea. Well, it's both sides. It's both sides that don't want peace. We have to push for it, and we are. Or when you're saying you're not hearing Russia talk about it, but we've said to Russia, no talks without concessions.
The United States, together with our allies and partners, is firmly committed to supporting Ukraine's defense today, tomorrow, for as long as it takes. And in America, this support is bipartisan. And precisely because we have no illusions about Putin's aspirations, we believe the prerequisite for meaningful diplomacy and real peace is a stronger Ukraine, capable of deterring and defending against any future aggression.
All right, so the prerequisite, before there's any discussion, we have to have Ukraine even stronger. And yet Ukraine is completely getting weaker by the day. So if our goal is a stronger Ukraine, isn't this the complete wrong way to go? And I don't have the clip here, but he also said at one point they have to get out of Ukraine altogether. There'll be no peace.
Well, I haven't heard the U.S. saying we absolutely will not, negotiate or work for peace. I haven't heard that. I mean, I can't believe that we would at least be willing to talk.
I mean, Arlen, look at the headline. Strong Ukraine, a prerequisite for peace.
Well, obviously, Ukraine has to defend itself and has to be capable of defending itself. Otherwise, we're going to do it, and NATO is going to do it, and they do need to have a strong, defense, and that is going to be important. But that doesn't preclude peace talks, I don't think.
All right. Well, there hasn't been any olive branch suggested. All the rhetoric we're hearing is critical of is blaming Putin for everything. He's lawless. He's a tyrant. This is Munich all over again. If we concede 1 inch, that's not how you have peace talks. That's how you ramp up pro-war sentiment, endless war sentiment.
Yeah, but hell, he's not. I haven't heard Putin saying, "Hey, I want peace. I want to stop this fighting." I haven't heard that.
You're focusing on Putin. Putin's not the American leader. I'm happy to criticize Putin all day long. There's no dispute. The question is, how do we get from a situation where there's 500,000 dead and wounded in Eastern Europe? How do we get away from a situation where much of Ukraine looks like a moonscape? That's the question. And to simply throw up your hands and say, well, Putin's not saying he wants peace, I don't think that's good enough. I think it's our job to demand that there be peace talks.
I agree. Both sides should be doing it. Right now, it's not happening. So they're equally wrong, I guess, if there is such a thing, even, that they want to do. I mean, just nobody's talking peace.
Well, actually, Donald Trump is. Donald Trump said at the New Hampshire town hall, we need to have talks. Dr. Cornel West is saying we need to have talks. So it's not true. India is saying we need to have talks. China is saying we need to have talks. So there are people saying we need to have peace talks. And my guess,
I don't know if the U.S. has precluded having peace talks. I just don't hear that.
Well, I don't know what else to play. I mean,
and if you want Trump to be president and get us out of this, well,
I would make the point that because Trump is talking about peace and Biden is absolutely not, that means that there's a greater likelihood that Trump will become president, because most Americans do not support this war. Most Americans recognize what a waste of blood and treasure we're looking at and want it to end. So if Trump is going to take a saner position than the Democrats and then all the other Republicans, well, then he's positioning himself to win. So I would say to you, if you want Trump to be president, then keep pushing for endless war with Russia.
Of course, Trump is going to say, "Oh, I'll end the war tomorrow. I'll do this. I'll do that." He says whatever he wants to say. But, in reality, it's not going to happen. So, and you say that American people are against this war, starting to be against the fighting and us, giving so much money and all that. But they also don't want us to just pull out. They don't want Putin to win.
I don't think we should just pull out. I think we should be demanding a ceasefire. We should be telling Ukraine that any additional support we provide you in materials is contingent upon right now we sit down with Russia and we talk about ways to end this immediately. And
we're in agreement on that.
Well, but that's not how it's going. That's not the aid is provided without any strings attached. And in fact, the only string attached is that you keep fighting. And I would urge you to watch the program I did Thursday with Bill Neal, Arlen, because we showed some images there where the U.S. is expressing concern that the Ukrainians seem reluctant to go into minefields without artillery support or air support. So the American neocon hegemony wants them to just keep using their people, their soldiers as fodder.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's, coming
We
up with
are.
this
Yeah,
solution.
don't say nobody. This is what the U.S. is pushing. This is our position.
Well, again, I don't hear Putin saying, "Yeah, let's have peace. Let's stop fighting." So both sides are probably to blame.
All right, we've got as far as we can go, which isn't very far. And I do find that very frustrating, Arlen, not with you, but this seems to me so emblematic of what we face when we have these political discussions, not just you and me, but I just find so often both sides, and I think you must find this even more than I do, because I'm always trying to find places to agree with conservatives and Republicans, and where can we see some sort of get to the next place. But it seems that, at least from where you sit and from where I sit too, it's almost impossible to reach a consensus on any issue.
Yeah, I think the whole world is frustrated with this war and wants it to end, but it's just not happening.
But
So,
you and I aren't able to, even between us, come to a consensus on who's to blame or what to do, how to respond. And what I'm saying is, when you debate with a Republican, for example, and you post your criticisms of Trump, they're not seeing anything that you see, right? I mean, you see the world completely differently.
there's also a lot of Republicans that want us to, they're against Ukraine, that want us to, stop helping Ukraine, and so there's a division in the Republican Party even. Although the Democrats, I think, agree that we have to keep fighting and have to keep helping Ukraine.
I know, it's really sad. That's
It is.
really, really
Yeah.
disappointing that the Democrats, that the Democrat Party is at one in this with endless war. I don't know where you go with that, except to say that's why I believe the Democrat Party is in very, very serious trouble, both politically, but even more than politically, just ethically, morally. I mean, you can't even criticize Israel in the Democratic Party without having to apologize and with bended knee. It's extraordinary.
All right, Hal, you're doing something the Republicans do that I don't like. You're calling it the Democrat Party. It's the Democratic Party. And the Republicans have purposely been doing that for years. And, the Democrats are allowing them to do it, which is stupid. But, I think
I think the problem is when you fight back and you raise this as an issue, it looks bad too, right? If you say you're calling us the Democrat Party, not the Democratic Party, people are like, really? That's what you're upset about? So either way, you lose. You lose if you bring it up because you look like you're nitpicky and you're avoiding the real issue, or you don't bring it up and then you look bad because you're letting them call you something other than what you are. So either way, the Democratic Party loses that way. Let's get to the second failed bromance here. Let's play this. Hold on. I want your thoughts on this.
Senator Sanders, Cornel West, who is a close ally of yours, he is running a third-party campaign for president. He recently criticized you for endorsing President Biden's reelection. Listen to what he said.
I love the brother, and you even in love, people have deep disagreements about these things. But I think, again, he's fearful of the neo-fascism of Trump. People look at Biden, they don't really want to tell the full truth. He's created the best economy that we can get. Is this the best that we can get? You're going to tell that lie to the people just for Biden to win?
What's your reaction to that?
Well, my reaction is that certainly is not the best economy that we can create. That was what my speech was about yesterday. We've got to join the rest of the industrialized world, guarantee health care to all. We've got to cut the cost of prescription drugs in half. We've got to raise the minimum wage to at least $17 an hour. We've got to build the affordable housing we desperately need. But where I disagree with my good friend, Cornel West, is I think in these really very difficult times where there is a real question whether democracy is going to remain in the United States of America. Donald Trump is not somebody who believes in democracy, whether women are going to be able to continue to control their own bodies. whether we have social justice in America, we end bigotry. Around that, I think we have got to bring the entire progressive community to defeat Trump or whoever the Republican nominee will be, support Biden, but at the same time, which is what I did yesterday, is demand that the Democratic Party, not just Biden, have the guts to take on corporate greed and the massive levels of income and wealth inequality that we see today.
All right, so thank you so much there, Bernie. And I want to get your thoughts. I'm just going to put on the screen real quick a slide here, which kind of, I think, summarizes what Bernie had to say. That's why I put it there, but I just want to keep it up, Arlen. So here's my question. Well, first of all, do you want to just synopsize, or whether if you'd heard that before, and your reaction to what Bernie just said?
Well, my reaction is I'm totally with Bernie on this. Maybe it's because I'm in Vermont right now. I don't know. And he's a senator from Vermont. But I think you have no choice but to beat the Republicans, to beat Donald Trump or whoever they put up. And if Biden's the only one that can do it, then you got to support Biden. I mean, Cornel West is not going to be president. Bernie's not going to be president. So we have to, go with who we have.
All right. So what you're saying, and this is what this is where I think there's such a massive, I guess, I don't know, paradox or irony or something, but you're saying or at least the U.S. government is saying to Putin, we're not going to even talk to you unless you do everything that we want. We're not going to have a conversation with you unless you do every single thing we want, which is get out of Ukraine, get out of Crimea, even Crimea, which you've occupied for 9 years. You got to do every single thing we want before we have a conversation. Bernie is saying to Biden, we're going to do everything you want, and we don't ask for anything in return. We're going to endorse you. We're all going to rally. We got to bring the entire community together. And then after we've done that, then, we'll ask you, we'll have the guts. Will you have the guts to take on corporate greed? Don't you think it makes more sense to say to Biden, if you really want to to take on corporate greed, if you really want to take on massive levels of income and wealth inequality, doesn't it make more sense to say to Biden, hey, if you want our help defeating Trump, then you better give us some meaningful concessions right now.
Well, Hal, we're really at a very dangerous time. There is a possibility that we could lose democracy if Trump got elected again, or anybody that's like Trump. And you certainly don't want that to happen. But at the same time, as far as Biden goes, I mean, Biden probably would like all the things that you're talking about, or many of the progressives are talking about. But how's he going to do it? He's got a Republican Party that will block him every chance they get. He's got a Supreme Court that will block anything progressive. So Biden doesn't have a lot of wiggle room, I don't think. He's got to at least do what he's doing, and he's making some progress. But he can't put out the entire progressive agenda and have any chance of winning.
Well, we disagree. I think that the only way he would have a real good chance of winning is if he says, yes, I support Medicare for all. Instead, he basically said he would veto it. I think that coming out against endless war and all the billions and billions of dollars we're wasting in, not just wasting, we're actually causing active harm around the world with the trillions ultimately in the Pentagon budget with our hegemonic activities. I think that's how he would be more likely to get reelected, not less so. So I think that's where he would activate millions and millions of young people if he talked about truly taking on the climate cataclysm. So I disagree. I think the way you win is if you take bold, aggressive positions, and that is what Bernie should be saying to Biden. Because what difference does it make if it's Trump or Biden? If either one is going to be giving us endless war, if either one of us is going to be giving us more and more drilling, what difference does it make? I mean, I honestly don't see that. I don't get it.
Well, hell, I don't think you're thinking in reality terms, because sure, it would be nice if young people and minorities and all that would agree with Biden and go for Medicare for all. And
Biden doesn't support Medicare for all. That's
know,
the
because he
problem.
doesn't-
That's how he would get support from young people. If he did take on the oil and gas and coal industries, that's how he would get their support.
Aren't you aware, Hal, that the Republicans are half the government and they're going to block anything and everything that Biden would propose, that you're proposing? So he has no real choice. He has no chance of getting those things.
Well, I guess
He's got what he can.
I think if he championed, Barack Obama had 60 senators on the Democratic side of the aisle when he was elected in 2008 and took office in 2009. And he frittered it away by half measures, by an Obamacare that wasn't nearly, that actually has not led to any of the real benefits that it was touted, and in many ways has caused more trouble for many Americans when it comes to healthcare. So the way that you bring people on your side and you have a real sea change in politics is you demand and you push for real meaningful solutions. He should have been saying, and this is what Biden should be saying, if you're not for Medicare for all, I'm going to campaign against you. I'm going into West Virginia and I'm going to tell the people of West Virginia the exact reason why their lives aren't better is because of Joe Manchin. Now, you might lose, but at least you'd be fighting the good fight. At least you'd be trying to make things better.
Well, we can't lose, Hal. We can't have.
We're losing right now. We're losing right now, Arlen.
It could only get worse if the Republicans take over. Believe me, Hal. It could only get worse.
How can it get worse than right now, where we're boiling our planet alive? We're boiling ourselves in a pot alive.
I agree. Things are bad, but I don't think Biden has the power to do what you're talking about.
Well,
the Senate is barely in the Democratic hands by one or two seats. The Republicans control the House of Representatives, and they're not going to back down on anything. They're very passionate about, blocking Biden on everything.
So why then, assuming that that is true, why then are Democrats so easily pushed into corners, and why are they so willing to back down over and over and over again if the Republicans aren't?
I agree with you on that, Hal. I'm not happy with the way the Democrats are, pushing forward. They've been a lot weaker than Republicans. Republicans would do anything and everything to get what they want. Democrats just seem to be too polite and nice, and that's not going to help either. So I agree with you on that point.
All right, well, I guess we've got someplace. Arlen is with us. It is Halitics. Click the bottom right blue and white square to subscribe. Please click like if you like this program. And also, please join us now, 240-363-7190. So let's see. I got some comments from our friend Jeff. You're a little bit not positive on Jeff, but Halitics, YouTube does not display all of your shows, so I can't find the particular one. Don't worry, though, you will in the future, and I will point it out. I don't know what he's talking about, something I did wrong. But
you're a work in progress.
They're all there. No, it's all there. There are some issues with YouTube. Sometimes it says there are 2 comments when there's only one posted. That's a YouTube bug. That's not me. That's not Halitics. That's something that I went over all weekend with Shade. And I've seen that with many other programs. Yes, all the videos are there. If you just click on the homepage, you just have to click their arrows. But yes, a lot of it is on the problems are with YouTube. By the way, Jeff, I want to thank you so much for watching. I always tell all my people who watch, anyone, I really appreciate it, much as I may react a little bit aggressively or assertively if you don't say something I really disagree with. I still appreciate I appreciate you very, very much. And that goes for you too, Arlen. I know you and I have had heated disagreements, and I do talk a lot, maybe too much sometimes, so I appreciate your sticking with me. And we're going to get to your topic as well. Arlen Grossman, pundit, writer. Maybe I should have a comma? Should there be a comma between pundit and writer, or is it okay to say? I also have here's a different one. It says progressive pundit. Which do you prefer, Arlen? Pundit, writer, or progressive pundit?
I'll have to think about that, Hal. I haven't really given it much thought.
Well, what about, let's get into this issue of the comma. Should it say pundit, comma, writer, or pundit? I could put a slash between pundit, because a pundit is usually a writer, but not always. I guess I'm sort of a pundit who doesn't do much writing these days.
I don't think a comma would hurt. It's probably a good idea to add one. Just
think,
so no people misunderstand.
Well, I think what I'm going to do is it this way. I like it this way. I always like the slashes. I always like lots of dashes too for some reason. So see, now I think that looks good. See how it has, to see the slash?
Oh, yeah.
So there you
I like
go.
that too.
All right,
I'm a
we
big
have,
fan.
and by the way, observant Halitics viewers will have noticed I did change the slide. I want to, somehow, Arlen, let's try to get to some kind of agreement. This is your topic, so you take it away.
Okay, well, obviously we have a problem with hate crimes. We all know what happened in Jacksonville yesterday. A person was so filled with hate that he just decided, I'm going to kill some black people. And there just seems to be more and more of that all the time. I personally think it has to do with Trump, who started, bad mouthing, immigrants and people of different races and people, he tries to, separate people. And I think a lot of his people just take that and become very hateful and say horrible things and act horribly against people who are different. And that's the problem we have now. I think Trump has caused a lot of damage. And, we have to get together as a nation, as a world, and, let each other live. But obviously that's not happening. And it's worrisome, especially with all the guns we have, that there's so much, hate out there, and that causes so much, hardship and grief for people.
All right, it's Halitics. You got Arlen with us, pundit / writer, and you said something, Arlen, that much as I don't like to blame Trump for things, I think the evidence, mainly because I feel like it's just it's sort of a partisan exercise that I don't feel good about, because I feel as a hard lefty, I should be more critical of my own side to the extent that I have a side than the other. But I think there's some data that really strongly supports your claim that Trump was responsible. Not for all of it, obviously. I mean, we've had plenty of hate crimes before we had Trump. But if you look at the numbers, you definitely saw a spike. You saw the numbers go down when Obama was president. And actually, we've seen them go down again, although they're coming back, I guess. I mean, we're talking about it today. But let me see if I can get this graph up here. And by the way, Arlen's sharing this with us. You can see that hate crimes, which are crimes, and I guess people know what they are, but just to be real quick, they're motivated by an attack on someone based on who they are, whether it's a sex, whether it's a gender issue, and most likely it's race. Most likely it's, in this country, based on people attacking others because they're black. So you can see the fewest reported crimes since 91 were when President Obama was president. And then they started to go up, and they reached a spike around 2019. And then they started to go down again, I guess, during COVID, because people were inside more. But Arlen, that does strongly support your hypothesis that Trump's rhetoric was a very significant factor in the rise of hate crimes.
Well, I think, MAGA is all about, make America great again. That kind of is a code word of saying, let's go back to when, rich white people were the ones that controlled everything. And now we're getting all these other different races and identities coming in. And America doesn't look the same as it used to. And that makes some people uncomfortable. And that's what pushes a lot of people toward the MAGA theory. So, we have to start tolerating each other, or we're going to end up in a very bad way.
What I don't like about this chart is that it doesn't show the last few years. Do you know, Arlen, whether we have seen a diminution in the total number of hate crimes since Biden became president? It seems like they started to go down in 2021 from this chart, but that's really the end of the Trump regime as opposed to the beginning, as opposed to Biden's.
Hal, I was doing some research and I noticed that they're a couple years behind on the statistics. So the newest statistics I find are like 2021, which doesn't help much in knowing what happened in 2022 and 2023. So that may be part of the problem.
So you do see that hate crimes. It's hard to generalize too much. It's hard to generalize too much because at least from this chart, during the Clinton years, the numbers were relatively high. They hit a peak in 2001, which was the first year where W was president. Then they started to go down again. So but plateaued. It's hard to make too many generalizations, but it would certainly seem, and I would posit this too, Arlen, that the election of President Obama would suggest, I think pretty strongly, not that we put racism behind us, but that we made significant progress in fighting it. If more than half, and remember, Obama's the first president, I think, since Ronald Reagan, or maybe the first Bush run, to get more than 50% of the vote. So more than half of all voting Americans chose Barack Obama to be president. Doesn't that suggest we made progress?
Not really, because I think right after that, people were more resentful. They were thinking, what was this guy doing as president? He doesn't look like the rest of us. And I think his standing actually went down after he was in office. And now, it's, people they want the way things used to be. And it's
you can understand why people might want to have college, like be able to go to the University of California for a few $100s rather than 30 grand. I mean, some of the way things used to be were better. I think people would prefer that their boss make 25, 30 times what they make and is in either the same building or in the same city rather than living a half a world away and making 450 times what they make. So in some ways, things were better 40, 50, 60 years ago.
I think right now the problem with hate crimes is the confluence of guns and hate, because together they make things a whole lot worse. When somebody could go and mow down a bunch of people of different ethnic group or different gender or something like that, then they're able to do that, and we're seeing more people killed that way. So I think we definitely have to work on gun control as well as hate.
Well, I'm with you there too, 100%, Arlen. I have a question. Do you think gun control is or could be or can be a winning issue for Democrats? And if it can, why isn't it?
You'd think it should be, and I think it can be, but I don't know. They have to push it a lot harder, I think, and establish the difference between Democrats and Republicans on gun control and really push it, because I think most of the people in this country want some common sense gun control.
240-363-7190, 240-363-7190. Arlen said to me last week, he said, we want calls. I want calls. So do him a favor, do me a favor and call in. 240-363-7190. We'll go another 5-10 minutes with Arlen. I have issues. I can't understand why the Democratic Party can't. And I think, and let me just make this a statement, and then you say agree or disagree and tell me why. The biggest reason the Democrats aren't able to make more hay with gun control is because they don't themselves seem united on this issue. They need to issue one statement and talk about it over and over and over again. Not about completely eliminating all guns, but to be very focused on getting all automatic or semi-automatic weapons out of the hands of anybody who could be, who has any record, and at the same time, much tighter background checks. And I think if they did that, now I would go much further personally, and I know there'd be a lot of pushback, but I think if that was loud and strong, the message from the Democrats, and they were introducing legislation, let the Republicans try to get rid of it.
And I think the Democrats have to really push the idea and get people to fully understand they don't want to take away all guns. We want people to have guns. That's okay. But it's the question of what kind of guns. You have to have common sense gun laws. And I think, people do want that and will agree to that. So, if the Democrats come together with a good, agenda, a good amount of this, common sense gun control laws, they should push it, and I think it will help them.
All right, I will agree with you on something else. I'll start this with an agreement. I do think that the issue of inequality is to tackle that would be very challenging for the Democrats, because the Republicans will fight tooth and nail against every effort, because inequality benefits them in certain ways. Would you agree that the rampant, obscene levels of inequality in America today are a driving factor in the number of hate crimes?
Yeah, I do. I think the economic condition of so many Americans is, not doing very well. They're upset with the way things are. They want to do things better, so they have to blame somebody, and often they'll blame, other races, other ethnic groups, immigrants, whatever, and that's why it's easy to stir up the hate, and somebody will get a gun and follow through.
So the three main, and I didn't have enough time, and this is on me, and I do apologize, folks. The three highest levels of numbers of hate crimes, let me say it that way, are first and foremost against black people. So people attacking blacks because they're black is the number one most common hate crime by a significant number. The second and third are crimes against Jews and crimes against people because of their sexuality. Now, that has flip-flopped. So we actually have seen recently, and I might have the numbers wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong, Arlen, the number of hate crimes against Jews has actually decreased somewhat, but the number of hate crimes against people based on their sexuality, they appear to be, if they're men who either appear to be gay or they're trans women, right? Men who are dressed, or biological males, people who appear to be biological males but dressed as females, they are targeted for hate crimes more than anyone else today, except for blacks. So I would argue, Arlen, that it's not simply increased levels of poverty, which I do think is a driver, but simply inequality. There's so much resentment and anger. People just feel like they're getting a raw deal. And Jews have always been a target in those circumstances because, let's face it, Jewish people have done very well in this country and have done very well in other countries. We are richer than just about every other ethnic group. We live better. So there's obvious resentment. There's anger. How come they have so much and we have so little? So that's one factor. And the factor against, I think, that we see against gays and trans to a degree, I mean, I think people innately dislike the other, but is also, how come we have to be so careful about our pronouns? How come they're getting all these little benefits that we don't get? They're getting treated better than we are. So that also generates anger and resentment.
Yeah, and the MAGA people are glad to, push against all that. Let's face it, how our country is changing a lot over the years, and there is more, gender differences and gender options, and that makes people uncomfortable, as well as, racial identities and ethnic identities. It's not the country it used to be. And I think when Trump says "Make America Great Again," he's talking about the way things used to be when, the whites had all the control. And now things are different. We're a very diverse country now, and that bothers a lot of people.
Given that fact, isn't it incumbent then upon Democrats, if they really are championing diversity and security for all people, regardless of identity, isn't it incumbent upon Democrats then to be speaking forthrightly about the need to guarantee everybody security, economic security, and to make sure that no one has too much, that they can either corrupt the system or be a target of, or cause so much resentment and anger that people will again be attracted to demagogues and haters. Oh, I'm seeing 3 Arlens now. I'm going to have to change that. I think we lost Arlen. Something went kablooey. Let me see if I can. Wow. Well, I think we lost you, Arlen. I hope you can get back. I'm not sure. I don't think that was me. You know, I'm going to guess. Here's my guess. His laptop died. Possibility. I don't know. Folks, that's going to do it. I am going to call it a day. I am not, although I sound much better, I know. I don't feel that great. I want you to call. Call tomorrow. We are seeing more people subscribe, but the numbers aren't growing the way I want. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell everybody you got to be. Halitics is where it's at. You got to be on Halitics. You got to be watching, listening, and calling in. Jeff, thank you for the comments. Always appreciated. Arlen, thank you so much for being on Halitics. I'll be back tomorrow.